Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, students. How are you today? I hope you are all fine and still healthy until now. Today, I'm going to explain to you about genres of literature. Please remember when I explained about what literature is 2 weeks ago. You could see here, actually, there have been various attempts to define literature, but until now, we haven't got any exact clear definition about literature, so no one cannot say that this is literature, that is not. Okay, that's also based on Eagleton. And for me, literature is a product of human beings which plays with languages, could be written or spoken. It means that products that doesn't play with language or doesn't use language, we cannot say that that's literature because it's agreed by all experts without any exception. And please note the fictional here, because I'm going to explain after this why for me literature is something that is fictional. Actually, if we pay attention on the genres of literature by experts, we could see two types. The first is non-fiction. We could record things like essay, criticism, biography, diary, letters, and the others as literary works. Why? Because it's from the definition of that literature is the use of language. So this kind of things plays with language. It means that they deserve to be recorded as literature. That's the first genre of literature by experts. The second one is fiction. This is what I always tell you, that literature is fiction. Let's say we have short stories, novels, play, poem, fables, folk tales, etc. Those works are from the imagination of the writer, and it's also such an expression because it's expressive. And one for sure, it's product of human beings, the creator. It means that we cannot say that like thing like essay or criticism and the other for me as literary work, because the imagination and things about the expression of feelings take part in so many parts of the literature itself. That's the definition. And you have to focus that it's product of human beings. If we pay attention on history is real and it's not a product. When we change that into a literary work, it means that we could assume that the writer modify even though not much about the real fact of the history. So that's why I consider that as not literature. Okay, now because we have agreed that literature is something fictional, so one of the definition of the genres in literature or of literature are these works. Okay, first we have prose or fiction. Many experts record that as fiction. It's a work created in the writer's imagination and designed to entertain readers. It could incorporate factual materials. Pay attention. It could means that it's possible, but it is not the real fact. Okay, please remember that. This is from Writer's Encyclopedia. It's spoken or written language expressed in not regularly rhythmic patterns. Rhythmic patterns belong to poetry. We will discuss after this. No metrical structure. Metrical structure plays about the metrical structure like ta 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 ta, like that, ta 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 or ta ta ta. So that's a metrical structure, and it is about story. So prose or fiction here usually is about story. That's why it is told in regular grammatical patterns. We don't record whether it has to be correctly served, but it's following the regular grammatical patterns because we have licentia poetica. So the examples are novel, novelette, short story. After this we have poetry. Poetry is a literary form expressed through extraordinary use of language and highly developed artistic form. a unique and imaginative interpretation of a subject. So literature here in poetry, it plays much with the language, with the symbol, with the interpretation. It could be in speech or writing, but it is in metrical form, like what I explained before. So it has to follow what formalists always say, that poetry especially is not about only the message, it's not about only the symbol or the interpretation about the subject, but it has to follow the pattern, one of which is the rhythmical pattern, because it is really about the play of the language or the words or diction. Okay, it's the greater use of literary devices or figurative language, so like hyperbole, personification, and the others. So because of this, we could see poetry, a very short poetry, but the meaning is so varied from when it is read by different people will have different interpretation about the work, and it has to be in a good pattern of sound. So it is not merely about the interpretation or the meaning, but it has to be in a good pattern of sound. And the third, we have drama. And my simple sentence about drama is like the fuse of prose and fiction. Do you know the meaning of fuse? So like you combine prose and poetry, and you fuse them, and that becomes drama. Why? Because drama has a story. It focuses on the subject, conflicts, and of the characters, with a greater use of language and sound, because it is expressed in front of the audience using accents, using intonation, using stress and expressions, and it also with narratives, because it provides a story. So my simple definition about drama is like the fuse of prose, because it has story and it is served in greater use of language also, just like poetry, even though it's not clearly like the poetry. And the last one, as one that until now, even though it has been decades ago agreed by many experts as part of literature, but still until now it's still, I think, a never-ending debate whether it is a genre of literature or not. But I agree that I am among the experts that agree that this is also genre of literature, film. Why? Because first, literature doesn't have any clear exact definition or static definition. No. Different people could still define literature in their own way, and as long as it follows the convention, some basic conventions that are agreed by experts, we could still record that as literature. Second, literature has innovation. It means that this is also the innovation of literature. If we pay attention on the convention of, let's say, film, and it is changed into text, we could see, for example, the elements of the story, so we can record that as literature. It is also agreed by many experts. That's why there is such adaptation from novel to film. So these are genres of literature, and I hope you could get this. I mean, you could have description about what the genres of literature in our class, especially when this is for English teaching. So please, now after this, try to define something, whether it is literature or not, literary work or not. You can submit that for this meeting's assignment. Okay, and I remind you now, because my classes have been more and more, you can subscribe if you want to get the updates or other lessons. Should I forget to inform you about the new lesson, if you subscribe, you can have the update. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.